Avowed, I still have very high hopes that this is gonna be the role-playing action game that we deserve.
Salutations, everybody. It is Maddie here today, and finally, the patience has paid off. We're sitting down to talk about Avowed. We're back to business as per usual. This has been our most requested video for the last couple of weeks with the new deep dive of gameplay for Avowed out. We also have, more recently, brand new information.
The gameplay is very important. There's two elements that are important about Avowed. Gameplay, because some attacks just feel bad when you're watching the trailers, but some attacks feel good, and there was a rework to their combat system, a slight one that did kind of make things look better. As I mentioned previously, there are a couple of problems. Magic wand spamming looks lame and doesn't feel good just by watching. And big spells need to be in third person, because when you have a big spell and you create some kind of rune circle in front of you, you can't see anything and it's stupid. Okay, that's how you make Adventures of Avion, or whatever that game was, 2.0. And hopefully the roleplay elements are on point. And those are the two big things that we need to see. Because the world building in, well, Avowed seems point on, okay? And the world seems like it's actually livable. The world seems realistic. There's no situation where you find some kind of random fungus mushroom growing in a cave, then on top of a hill, and then in a desert. There's none of this immersion breaking crap, so it looks really good.
Information from director Carrie Patel on the size of the game, the scope of the game, and the best comparisons you can make for Avowed, which does not include Skyrim. We'll get into all of that. But thank you for your patience nonetheless. As I said, back to business as per usual, starting today. So let's get into some games, y'all. First off, at the top, I want to talk about the deep dive gameplay that came out on the Xbox podcast. Now, for those who are not aware of my prior thoughts on Avowed, I was very much convinced this is a Maddie style game, but I wasn't totally in love with the showing we got at the developer direct. I think Obsidian games have fine enough combat, and definitely comparatively speaking, Avowed looks the best in that department from what we've got from them in the past. But when I talk to you about something like
that's true,
The Outer Worlds or Fallout New Vegas, I'm not really trying to sell you on the gameplay experience. I'm trying to sell you on the role-playing, the dialogue, the choices, the reactivity. That's the stuff from Obsidian that...
Dude, people say New Vegas had horrible combat. I mean, it's literally the same as Fallout 4, 76. That combat has never really changed. I don't understand the people who are saying, oh, you want a really good gun experience, you need to play Fallout 4. No, Fallout 4 is not actually good gun-wise also. It's crap. All Bethesda games have horrible combat on average, especially with guns.
Really lights my fire, and I felt like a lot of that was missing in the developer direct. Things like even dialogue were barely present, and that was upsetting to me. But as someone who knows and loves Obsidian games, I didn't really let that deter my hype, but more so I called for there might be a delay here. But this June...
By the way, that's a huge red flag for me. Someone who loves a company so much that I don't care what bad they do? I do not love a single company, okay? I love the games that they have made, and I could not care less about the company, because we have been wronged so many times. We have been lied to. We have been deceived. I'm not a fan of a single company at this point. I just hate a couple of companies and that's it. And Bethesda is one of the biggest ones, because they have completely destroyed Fallout.
When we got the new trailer for Avowed, oh my gosh, did it look way better already. And I felt very convinced, you know what? This actually may come out this year. Now, there was a release date leak of November 12th. We'll get into that a little bit later, but it's since then been removed. So we don't know if this is for sure coming out this year, but nonetheless looks much improved. And the best part about it all is here in this deep dive, I finally got to lay eyes on things that I wanted to see from Avowed, but also I got some clarifications on information I wasn't really processing properly. What I mean by that is at the top, when you see the gameplay start off, they highlight a lower level character in a higher level zone. And you'll see the combat is kind of dudding a bit. If you listen back to the interview, you'll hear the gameplay in the background and the attacks sound like duds. They're really thudding around constantly. You know, all the onomatopoeias that are unsatisfying, basically. And then you've got the also.
By the way, this combat doesn't look good, I know. But this is the same deal as in literally every game. And the thing is, this combat will feel fine if you're two-shotting these things. Any combat that you have where you're hitting something 500 million times to kill is just bad combat. The reality is, if you're playing and you're two-shotting these things, it's perfect. You're going to say the combat's good. The combat's great, in fact. This is what I call the New World dilemma. New World's combat is really good if you're two-shotting things. But the moment you do your skills and the enemy is still alive, New World's combat just instantaneously collapses and it's repulsive and I don't want to play anymore. But the moment you two-shot something, hey, 2 thumbs up, baby boo. It's really good.
You know, all the onomatopoeias that are unsatisfying, basically. And then you've got the also visual feedback of your weapon kind of kicking off of them. Doesn't look or feel as good. And they showed a little bit of that in the developer.
You know what's the real problem here? There's no death animation for getting slashed, for example. The fact that this thing's head doesn't get lopped off, that's a bad thing from me.
Or feel as good. And they showed a little bit of that in the developer direct originally. And at that point, I'm like, well, the feedback isn't that great for combat. This looks like it needs some refining. But you start to see that not only with some time to adjust.
By the way, you see that? That was 4 strikes. And it already felt better. Now imagine you're playing and this takes only 2 hits. Yeah, instantaneously good combat.
This looks like it needs
Crazy,
some refining.
huh?
But you start to see that not only with some time to adjust and respond to that feedback, but also understanding, oh, you're under-leveled. The game is visually and audibly communicating to you, hey, it might be time to upgrade or swap weapons for this enemy because it's more resistant to this type of attack, that sort of thing. And so just those little details there went a long way with me understanding what Avowed is. Not only that, but we got to see dialogue in its full glory, which is something I really wanted to see more of beyond the minor side quest option that we got from the first developer direct with Avowed. We saw skill checks and flavor dialogue, which director Carrie Patel talked about how
breathable.
A lot of this is determined through the character creator. There's one point where you're talking to Yacht.
Okay. I have heard Maddie Place talk about how genius the dialogue options are in Skyrim or something like that. So I'm not trusting those sentences. Okay, what does this creature say? But perhaps we don't need one. You're tall, striking, and well-toned. If you're trying to flatter me, it's working. Okay, that's a decent response. It's true, you should touch my abdomen. That's a good response. You said something about a godless. Who are they? That's ignoring her. Okay, makes sense. If you don't want to engage with this, that's fine, I guess. What are you suggesting? We literally can never tell what the woman is thinking. Maybe she's just being nice for some godforsaken reason. Very good. I'm pressing 4, and it's probably leading nowhere. Can we focus? What do you want? Oof. Are you flirting with me? Oof. These are decent choices. They're different. Okay, good.
And she's got 6 dialogue options that you can go through and how you want to respond. That's music to my ears. Overwhelm me every step of the way with dialogue choices, and I'll be a happy boy. And also,
is he saying that's music to my ears because there's a whopping 6 dialogue options? Listen. 6 dialogue options doesn't mean it's better than 3 actually well-made dialogue options.
Last little thing I wanted to talk about was the visuals. I have to say that this game is very pretty in its own way. Like,
no, this is bad. It's too colorful.
Some of the nighttime shots, they mention it here in this little interview, but I agree. The nighttime shots in this game look good. Like, there's this one
yeah, and the game does look good.
Spot that they briefly show where you see this
good enough,
village glowing kind of a purple hue, and it's beautiful. Kind of gave me Fable vibes, honestly. But nonetheless, I thought this game looked really great. Now, the best thing about this gameplay. No doubt about it at all. I thought they'd be shouting this thing from the rooftops, and I'll get into why, but they kind of did it on the low, is a third-person mode in Avowed. So this is why I think a lot of people are continuously
God, that is desperately needed for spells.
drawing Skyrim comparisons. When you see the third-person slow camera rotation in the camp scene, that's some I left my controller on idle in Skyrim type energy right there. And you can see that all over Avowed. While I think the
That's a very nice bow also. Oof.
comparisons are understandable with Skyrim, they're really claiming in prior interviews that have been done with Carrie Patel that you should look at games like The Outer Worlds in the terms of scope and narrative design as well as length. They mentioned that it's around the same length too, but also like this is a Pillars game. So they say, look at Deadfire if you want to feel for what this game is going to be like. I still think Skyrim was a clear inspiration to this game. I mean, you can't look at that reveal trailer of Avowed and think it's not, but
That's such a stupid thing to say. I mean, everything top down in that game. I don't know what's even the first top down game ever. You know? Oh, every shooter game is inspired by Doom. That's effectively what you're saying.
but it definitely
That's
reminds me
stupid.
more of The Outer Worlds in the terms of its hubs and its zones, as we'll get into direct quotes from Carrie Patel. We also
Oh, it was inspired by Skyrim, but it looks like Outer Worlds. Why do you even say these things, honestly?
subsequently learned that this third-person mode, the whole game is playable in it. So it's not just this camp scene or specific parts of the game. Like, you can just run around in third person. Why did I think they'd be shouting this from the mountaintops? With The Outer Worlds, the single biggest request from that game as someone who did a ton of content for that title, absolutely 1000% was the third person option not being there. Please add it in a patch. There were so many conversations about The Outer Worlds needing a third person mode. There were people who were refusing to buy it because it didn't have a third person mode. So to me, I see this as a response to that feedback. I'd still love to see Outer Worlds with a third person mode. I think the days of updating that are done, but hey, Outer Worlds 2, it's got to have that third person mode. But seeing Avowed have that, love that option there, because for me, I love being able to see the armor I'm wearing, do the full rotation, take it all in, and then likely go back.
I literally don't care, by the way, with third-person mode. I have literally never played Fallout, any Fallout with third-person mode, but it's nice to have it. The more, the better. I mean, you can't go wrong by just adding a third-person mode. It's not a big deal. It's cool, and the people who like it, that's good. That's good for them. This is a good ad. No question.
Into first person. We also learned that gear has 4 tiers: common, fine,
Ooh.
exceptional, legendary, and you'll
Okay, ability cost cooldown. Kind of basic, but I guess that's not honestly a problem in a, game like this.
require specific items as well as
Crit hit chance, stamina cost, stun. Okay.
money for upgrades. So
Not a big
yeah,
deal.
pretty bare bones, simple upgrade system for your weapons here. I don't think that's a bad thing. I'd like for those things to be simplistic compared.
I'm not a fan of simplicity, but I mean, in a game like this, you're not really looking to create, this is not what these games are about. So I can't even blame them for not having a super in-depth, PoE style of character creation. As long as they just have a lot of different weapons, a lot of different skills and whatnot, that's fine. That's all I want.
Compared to character building, stat allocation, build crafting, that sort of stuff. We also learned a bit about attributes when you're building your character. There's
Ooh.
might, which determines your damage and character.
Oh no, you know what I hate? I hate carry weight being attached to like strength or something like that in these games. Yes, it makes perfect sense, but you can't tell me that it doesn't feel bad. Attack speed, action speed, crit chance, max range. Max range, interesting. Essence, elemental resistance, stamina, second wind cooldown. Oh, okay.
Carry weight, constitution, which determines health and poison/bleed resistance.
Also, by the way, this is literally 20% carry weight, so 5 might means 100% more carry weight. That's... I just want a game that gives me a backpack and you can upgrade the backpack and magically carry more. That's all I honestly want in life. I don't want carry weight to be tied to a stat ever. And I don't care that it's lore breaking. I don't care that, you know, if you want that, sure, fine, but carry weight is such an issue in these games.
There's dexterity, which determines your attack and action speed. Perception, which affects your critical hit chance and range. Intellect affects your essence and elemental resistance.
Unlock finesse. Increase damage one-hand melee weapons. Increase damage one-hand melee weapons by 50%. Aha. So, what does this actually mean? Is this like plus 40% damage on top of 100? And does the 50 mean 50% plus... So, is this 150 total damage, or, you know, 190 total damage? Or alternatively, is this 210% damage? Oh, there's also 25 here. Yeah, I have no idea which one is it. I wish that games just, you know, explained this.
And resolve determines your stamina and second wind cooldown. Now, each attribute, it says, has a bonus that ends at rank 10 on the bottom.
Also, this kind of is a little bit lame, I guess, but that's just the first rank, so I guess it's fine.
So that seems to be the highest you can go with it. And we also learned about abilities, each having 3 ranks that you can upgrade. And by the way, you can respec whenever you want, so keep this in mind when you're building your character initially in Avowed.
Yeah, everything's currently just damage upgrades.
Between attributes and abilities. We saw quite a number of them. The fighter had the charge ability. Ranger, we saw Tanglefoot, which was an ability to ensnare an enemy. And there were more passive ones like Finesse, Marksmanship, which determined your damage for things like guns. There was Dodging. There's a Parry ability. Then you had the Wizard with Minor Missiles, Armored Essence, Wand Mastery, Chill Blades, Fan of Flames.
I mean, I wish it was a little bit more interesting than just plus % damage and you don't even know if it's additive or multiplicative, but I mean, okay.
There were also 2 branches we didn't get a look at in Godlike, as well as companions. So yeah, the Outer Worlds comparisons continue on. You can sort of see the skeleton of the Outer Worlds living throughout this entire game, just with different names. For example, seeing companion abilities, that was something that was already in the Outer Worlds. I think the way you see the stats and how they're laid out, it kind of reminds me of the Outer Worlds, just with different names. So this is a lot of that asset reusage coming in and helping Obsidian out a lot with building these games. But I am very curious about what the godlike abilities are like. And so, yeah, just this looks like a great character building system, a lot of depth here, and good that you can respec whenever you want because you can kind of change your build on the fly. You also got a good look.
I mean, it does make sense that Maddie said, oh, there's a lot of depth in this depthless pool.
At exploration, there was one.
But that's fine. Again, as long as you just have enough abilities and they're different enough, I mean, plus 20% or 50% damage is not that bad.
Point where the player character burned things down to open up new areas to explore. We already saw in the developer direct being able to like freeze a river and use that as a way to jump up to a higher location. That stuff is awesome. I can see some really cool player creativity there. And you see how it gets rewarded in the end of this gameplay. So they show the end of this quest in 2 ways where you're trying to get the Adragon's heart. There's one approach which is more aggressive. You see the player just killing all of these enemies, going to the heart of this lair, killing this mini boss, and taking the heart there. Then there is the stealth option, which they also show off, where the player does not engage, sneaks in, engages in dialogue, and the reception from this character is completely different now, and they are more than willing to help you out because you did not kill her people. And so I just love that the reactivity has changed in Obsidian game from not just the dialogue and the things you say, but it's the things you do in the world. So that's very exciting for me, and that was the essential big takeaways for me from this deep dive into Avowed's gameplay. And now we got some interview quotes to get into to sort of shape that opinion further. Quoted by IGN,
I literally could not care less, honestly, what the devs say.
In an interview with Game Informer, game director Carrie Patel was asked if Obsidian embraces comparisons to Skyrim or pushes against them. Patel replied by failing to name-check Bethesda's all-conquering fantasy role-playing game, instead suggesting fans should think about sci-fi RPG The Outer Worlds instead. I think the best comparison is the Outer Worlds, Patel insisted. I think that gives a much clearer idea of the scope of the game and also the design and layout. Like the Outer Worlds, Avowed has a series of...
Now, to be fair, again, I have stated this before. I am not the biggest Skyrim stan. I never downloaded a single mod. I didn't even finish the story. But I still had roughly 50 hours in the game. Again, not the biggest fan, but Skyrim is still a good game. Okay? No way to deny it. It's good enough to play for a long time. So, I'm honestly kind of a little bit more for saying this game is more Skyrim than Outer Worlds. Because Outer Worlds was just... It wasn't that bad, let's be completely real, but it didn't take risks. It just didn't take any risks.
Of open zones that are connected and unlock over the course of the game, rather than one giant map that you can walk through from beginning to end. And yeah, in terms of the kind of quest structure, the narrative structure, it's a lot closer to the Outer Worlds as well. The best comparison for Avowed in terms of scope is the Outer Worlds game director Carrie Patel revealed during a chat with Game Informer. Players can expect a roughly similar experience just like the Outer Worlds, depending on what kind of difficulty they play and how thoroughly they explore and invest inside content versus just sticking.
By the way, I don't know about you, but I'm definitely playing this day one. Again, I have high hopes for this.
To the main crit path missions. For me, I remember reviewing the Outer Worlds, no DLC by the way. I remember reviewing the Outer Worlds and that took me about 35 hours to beat. So Avowed falling in that pocket is great news. I gotta say, shout out to the patience from some of the leaders at Obsidian. This is like the millionth time I've seen them been asked about the Avowed and Skyrim comparisons. And I get it initially, right? Like you see this reveal trailer and then you see the gameplay and there are some differences there. People want clarification. We got that like 2 years ago now.
Okay, I feel there's nothing more left here. Anyway, that was Mr. Matty Plays. Ubu. Anyway, this was Kuzer Said Sam. Bye!